connection-centered thought leadership. Our next guest is going to dive into this. When we think about leveraging the power of connection-centered thought leadership, we want to inspire action, attract opportunities, and leave that lasting legacy. We want to amplify your influence. Join me and Baily Hancock on this next episode of the GSC Factor podcast as we dive into the importance of connection, the importance of interpersonal relationships, the importance of authenticity, and the importance of amplifying your influence. Whether you are an ambassador for a nonprofit, whether you are an employee of an organization, you have a story to tell. You have a story that needs to be amplified. Let's dive in and learn more about this connection-centered thought leadership today with Baily Hancock. On today's episode, I'm excited to have Baily Hancock. Hi, Baily.
Hi, I'm so happy to be here.
Excited to have you here. Let's hear a little bit about your story and share it with our GST Factor podcast listeners today.
Well, I call myself a connection strategist and professional friend maker, and that's essentially it. I teach people how to build, nurture, and leverage relationships to succeed together and achieve their goals. And the professional friend maker came from years and years ago. I was doing partnerships and business development for work, and my then 4-year-old nephew was like, "What do you do for a living, Aunt B?" And I was like, "Well, I make friends for a living and I help them learn how to play together." And he's like, "That's not a job." And I'm like, "Oh, it kind of is, buddy." And then now fast forward many years later, he's a smarmy teenager. He'd probably say the exact same thing, but I do. I teach people how to harness the power of their community and their connections and collaboration to do all the things, whether that's increasing visibility, credibility, or their impact in the world. There's just so many applications. And I think if people were just better connected to themselves and others, we would have far fewer problems in this world of ours.
Love that. So today we're going to talk about being influential, which is one of our 6 GST Factor attributes. And you have an amazing workshop called Amplify Your Influence. So talk to us a little bit about that, because I think that some of our listeners, a number of them are entrepreneurs and founders, and connection is going to be so important. But let's talk about and dive into that amplifying your influence.
If you're doing something of value, which I assume you are, since this is your business, especially if you're an entrepreneur or you're an author or a thought leader of some kind, ideally, what you're doing requires people to take some kind of action, right? Whether that's hire you or buy your thing or sign up for your membership or whatever it is. And we can depend upon traditional marketing only so far. There is such a rise in leveraging your personal brand and your own story and your own expertise as a means to amplify your influence, which really just means get the word out about what it is that you're trying to do to more people so you can ultimately have a greater impact. So how this plays out in my work is I've created a concept called connection-centered thought leadership. And it's effectively thought leadership, which is sharing your knowledge and your expertise with a human storytelling personal component to it. So it's leveraging connection and giving people an opportunity to see the human being behind the expertise so that they can kind of jump from the awareness of you to the action that you're trying to get them to take, right? So we all know about the know, like, and trust factor. Usually, when you're out there promoting your product in traditional marketing channels, you're getting people to know about you. But that doesn't really factor in the like and trust piece as quickly. It can take a really long time for somebody to feel like they can trust you enough to buy your thing or download your product or, hire you. But if you can layer in the connection component to your thought leadership when you're out there telling people about everything that you're trying to get them to do, it helps them understand who you are on a human level, and it can help them build that like and trust factor so much faster. So it's incredibly powerful as a strategy to amplify your message, whatever it is you're trying to do in the world, get the word out to more people so that you can increase your opportunities that come to you. You can inspire action and even leave a lasting legacy.
So many amazing nuggets here. And what I really want to tap into is, you've talked about and touched on that B2C component, right? When you're out there in the marketplace. But let's talk about how you're helping organizations, leaders, boards of directors, a lot of groups that are leading these organizations. How are you leveraging that connection centered thought leadership with them to make a lasting impact to an organization?
If you're on a board or you're a representative or a spokesperson for an organization, and that could even mean your business as well, because you're a spokesperson for your business, you're an ambassador, which means you are out in front of potential clients, potential donors, potential members, potential supporters all of the time. So when I say thought leadership, most people think of like being on a stage, which is true. That is a version of thought leadership. But connection centered thought leadership can also be one on one conversations you're having with people, which are extremely impactful. They're not as scalable, but that's okay. It's a different channel. So when you think about why connection really matters in this situation, whether you're an ambassador for somebody else's company or your own, it just decreases the amount of time it's going to take for them to take that action that you're asking them to take. So it's in addition to sharing that expertise and those insights, you're also going to place a much stronger emphasis on fostering authentic relationships. And obviously, as a professional friend maker, relationships are it. It's the whole kit and caboodle. It's the whole point. It's how everything could be done so much better and more authentically and just in a more enjoyable way, right? So what we're really trying to do here is drive meaningful engagements to increase the impact you can have with a human-centric approach. So it's not just, hey, buy my thing, download my downloadable, join my membership. It's like, here's a story of how somebody in my community was impacted by joining it. Here is the positive impact that this book or this course has had on people in my community. And even further back than that, it's here's why I'm doing this at all. Here's why I came to this product. Here's why I started this business. Here's why I joined this board of directors, right? It just, again, it like humanizes it and helps people feel like you're not just trying to sell them something, you're trying to connect with them first, which is crucial.
I think what's so important too, especially for the nonprofit world, whether you are serving as a board member or serving as a mentor, like I myself mentor for Vanderbilt's The Wondery, their Entrepreneur and Innovation Center, but then I also mentor with Williamson County Schools Entrepreneur and Innovation Center. And what I realized, having served as a board member to multiple nonprofits for 2 years before that, it's all similar. You're sharing the story, you're learning the story, you are an ambassador. And I think that that's really important for these nonprofits and these educational institutions to realize and embrace is you are a business. Yes, you are a nonprofit, but you need to connect at that story level, maybe just a little bit more, because you're asking people to donate their time, donate their resources. And even though they're ambassadors, they're not necessarily employees of your organization.
Right. And you have to empower them with the information they can use when they're out promoting you on your behalf, right? If you're an employee of an organization or a member of a board or just a representative of a company, it's really important for the entity you're representing to give you the information that is cohesive, it's on brand, it's aligned with what other ambassadors are sharing. So I recently worked with a board of directors, and one of the things we worked on together was establishing the organization party line, basically. It's like, what is the story here? What are the different case studies we can share to help humanize the organization and to help build that individual trust as well? And so it's kind of figuring it out for you as an individual, as well as you as a representative of the greater organization. What are those different talking points? And we can get into how that looks. I have a formula called the learn, feel, do formula, which really helps you bring it home of like, okay, but what am I sharing in this connection centered thought leadership opportunity, be it one-on-one or on a massive stage?
And I think what we continue to see is the importance of connections, the importance of those relationships, but the importance of understanding and internalizing the why,
Yes.
because we're there for a reason. We are with an organization to do a job as an
Right.
employee or a contractor. We are with an organization if we're donating our time or our resources because we want to amplify, because there's that heart connection that's happening. And so it all comes back to connection, interpersonal relationships, all the things that say this is who makes us humans. And when you think about that work, life, family integration, it makes us who we are today.
We so often think that we have these different versions of ourselves that are out there floating around. And that's true. Many people do have different versions of themselves that they present in different scenarios. Most people have a work self and a life self. But at the end of the day, we're all just people playing various roles. But there's always a person underneath whatever that role is. And I think if we can get closer to talking to that person and as that person, that's where genuine connection can actually come from. And it just truly catalyzes any sort of action that is going to come from that experience, right? It's like if you can just help people see who you actually are and help them understand that you're not just some expert or you're not just some ambassador that's, running from a script. Like you're a human that joined that organization or started that business for a very valid reason, likely. So I think when we can incorporate personal stories, personal anecdotes, even case studies and stories from other people that aren't us, those are perfectly acceptable too. It really does help take the information from the head down into the heart. So I think about it that way, right? Where it's like, let's say you're listening to a podcast and somebody's on there and they're sharing great wisdom, great expertise. For me, when I hear that, and that's like the whole of it, I think, well, that's interesting. Moving on with my day. But if the person I'm listening to can tie it into some personal stories or some compelling examples that they can share or some why should I care situations, then they have my attention because it's taking it from a concept to a feeling. And people make actions, they take action from feeling, usually, right? And if you do take action from your head or, that conceptualization center, I find that the outcome is generally a little bit not as deep and rich as if you're making a decision from your heart. And so the whole crux behind connection centered thought leadership is, yes, of course, give great information, teach people something, create awareness for something, but make them feel something too, so that they feel called to take the action you inevitably ask them to take, which as entrepreneurs or marketers is a call to action, right? Do you want to offer them something? Do you want to ask them to do something? Whatever it is, they're going to be much more compelled to do that thing if they feel some type of way after hearing the education that you offer them.
What is Baily powerfully choosing in 2024?
Connection. Is that a shocker? I spent the last 2 years in-house at a company working on somebody else's thing, and it was good until it wasn't. And now that I'm back out on my own, it's been about 6 months since I've started my business once again. After a 2-year hiatus, I had a business for 5 years prior to that, and I just needed a break because I had 2 kids and a pandemic, and it was a bit much. And so I needed to have a break, and that's what I got working in-house, and then it was no longer a break. So now that I'm back, I got laid off at the end of 2023. And the first thing I did when I didn't know what to do was connect, because that's my natural state is connection. It makes me feel less alone. It makes me have great ideas. It gives me inspiration. And in the last 6 months, I've had around 175 conversations with people. And it's funny because I started to feel bad about that initially because I was like, okay, but what are you doing? You're just talking to people all day. Like, what are you doing? Are you even asking these people for anything? And even when you and I connected a few months ago, I didn't have a clear ask. I just wanted to connect with you because you were introduced to me by somebody else and you've now introduced me to like 5 people. So connection is my natural state of being. It's what I do when I don't know what else to do. However, what I've learned in these 175 plus conversations is connection, even without an intention behind it or a goal, is actually really powerful anyway. And I've identified 3 I's that can come from most connections, which are info, So information, you gave me all three I's, by the way. Information is like, oh, you should read this book. You should check out this event. You should download this podcast. You should read this article, like great information resources. Then there's inspo, inspiration. That's, ooh, have you thought about this? Or, oh my gosh, I think what you're doing is really cool, but maybe what if you moved in this direction? Or I'm just here to support you. I think you're great. That is very valid. And then there's intros, which are introductions to people who might be able to support you on your journey. Those are obviously my favorites because then I just keep getting to do the thing that I love to do. But inspo, info, and intros are incredibly valuable, turns out. And I just think you never know what's going to come of a connection. And if you're open and you're honest, and again, even if you apply this same formula, right, of how can I offer up connection points to the person that I'm meeting or chatting with or reconnecting with, it helps you get to know each other so much faster too, which helps build that know, like, and trust factor. And then you never know what's going to come from it. So I'm prioritizing connection because I spent the last 2 years not connecting with people, not nurturing my network. I abandoned LinkedIn and social media because I didn't know who I was anymore in those places. And now I feel like I'm returning to myself. I'm returning to the things that feel really good and valuable in my life, and ideally valuable for the people I'm connecting with.
Amazing. I love your three I's. I love that I accomplished all of them and
You
met
did,
all of them
in spades.
Thank you so much for the valuable nuggets and lessons of wisdom for our listeners today. And we hope that today has been inspiring and encouraging. For those of you that are needing to do more connecting, we hope that hearing Baily's encouraging words around the importance of connection is going to inspire you to get out there and connect. Also, for those organizations out there that you are needing to empower and equip your ambassadors, reach out to Baily and really think about how can you amplify the influence of your ambassadors and the importance of that. Thank you to Baily for joining us today. Thank you to our GSD Factor podcast listeners. And don't forget to get shit done.
Thanks for listening to the GSD Factor podcast. If you liked this episode, please rate and subscribe on your favorite podcast platform, where you can also find previous episodes. Let's also connect on LinkedIn and Instagram. If you're looking for more information on the GSD Factor, visit us at gsdfactor.com. And always remember to GSD, get shit done.